Hey, good morning. This is Pete, North Las Vegas. Got some parts in yesterday so we can hopefully get this upper receiver finished off today. If you haven't seen the previous videos on this playlist, I'm trying to put together something that approximates a Colt 727. So anyway, I think we'll start off by taking a look at this Brownells bolt carrier group. I don't have all the fancy pins and measurement tools, but I think we can do enough to where we'll know that we have a good BCG. And generally what I do is I'll use other parts and other things to make a determination as to whether at least the parts are going to fit together well. All right, well, let's get started. I'm going to make a prediction before I get this out of the packaging. With the way the firearms industry is nowadays, if you get something that's just cosmetically 100%, or you can't find anything, or if you can't find anything physical or mechanical wrong with your firearm parts in today's world, you got lucky. And like I said, I'm going to make a prediction about this BCG. I will find something. It may be cosmetic, it may be physical, it may be dimensional, but I'm willing to bet money I'll find something wrong with this BCG. Let's find out if I'm right. Okay, so besides the magnetical particle testing, MP stamped on here, we can see there's a lot of chrome that comes out in front of the carrier. That's not a problem. The only reason I'm pointing that out is this is something that Microbest does. They'll really run a lot of extra chrome out on the front. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just pointing it out to say that if I had to guess, I would say that this BCG that Brownells sells is actually a Microbest. That's my guess. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check all the bearing surfaces of the carrier using my fingernail. The human fingernail can detect about 1 to 2 thousandths. So I'm going to drag my fingernail over all the edges of the bearing surfaces that come in contact with the receiver bore. So we'll check all the bearing surfaces, looking for burrs or dings, anything that could cause damage to the receiver. And you check back here also on the OD and the ID. And you're looking for any imperfections back here, because if there's any burrs or anything that's not supposed to be there, that'll chew your buffer up. So let me do that off camera, and if I find anything, I'll be back. Okay, so I did find a pretty good ding on the back of the bolt carrier that makes contact with your buffer. And my fingernail got hung up on that pretty good. You can see right there. And that will definitely cause buffer damage. So I'm going to take a needle file and smooth that out. Okay, I got it smoothed out enough to where I don't think it's going to cause any buffer damage. That part right there is like below the main plane. So I think we got it smoothed out enough. And I did go ahead and take some 1000, and I just kind of broke the edges on the outside just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Looks like there's a little tiny one right there too. Once I hit it with the sandpaper, I can't feel that, but you can kind of see it. But anyway, we got this area all smoothed out, and I'll probably hit this with a little bit of cold blue when I'm all done with the bolt carrier group. All right, let's see if we can find anything else wrong with this. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to check is firing pin protrusion. I want to make sure that the pin's not coming out too far or not coming out far enough. So we're going to check the firing pin right in here. I just happen to have one of these firing pin protrusion gauges, so that makes it a little easier for me to check. But that's what we're doing right there. And then here's the actual drawing. And there's the specs for the protrusion. 28 to 36 thousandths. If you don't have one of these gauges, you could probably maybe get adventuresome and use the back of your calipers to measure the depth, but that's going to be a little tricky. Not going to be real accurate. Okay, so on the minimum side, let's see if this is marked. I think it is. Yeah, minimum, maximum. So on minimum, you want that firing pin to just touch the top side of that notch. And then when you flip it around and check the max, you don't want the firing pin to make contact with that notch. So we'll come in here and make sure that's all good. Now when you check your protrusion, make sure your bolt is all the way pushed to the rear on your carrier, and you want to keep a little bit of finger pressure on your firing pin. All right, let's see if that passes. All right, this may not be the best camera angle, but on minimum, like I said, the firing pin, I have a paper towel shoved in there to hold the firing pin because I didn't feel like getting my camera tripod out. So on minimum, your firing pin should touch the top of that slot or that notch, which it does. And then I'm going to flip it around to the maximum side, and it should not touch. Okay, so using our gauge, that looks to be good. Okay, I think I already mentioned it at the beginning of the video, but I don't have all the pin gauges to really blueprint this thing. But what I can do is I can use the parts that I'm going to use and see how they fit. So let's see what's going on with the gas key here, and that fits pretty snug. So I think we're good there. Yeah, I know some of you guys are worried about the staking. There it is. Staking looks pretty darn good. All right, let's get this thing apart and we'll dig a little deeper. So the chrome lining on this carrier for the bolt bore is very, very good. It's very smooth. It's very well finished. It's probably one of the better ones I've seen, to be honest with you, and I've looked at quite a few of them. The bolt rings fit nice and snug. Like I said, I don't have all the pin gauges, but I can tell by the way this thing slides in and out, locks in and out of the cam track, that it's a good fit. I can't, positively say where we're at on the bearing surface. I could measure the bolt, I suppose, but just going by feel, everything fits really nice on the inside. Okay, so I think we're done talking about this thing. Let's get back onto the bolt itself. Okay. Something I noticed right off the bat is if you look at the pin here for the ejector, you can see on this side here, let me flip it around, get a different angle. You can see on this side here, they didn't quite get that pin right there below the lug area. So the pin is not quite centered properly. And I ran a sharp edge over that, and it does get hung up on the pin. So we're going to have to tap that pin in a little bit more on the ejector. You can see where it's not quite where it should be. Okay, there's a better shot. So we'll have to tap that in a little bit more. You can see they didn't get that. All right, what is that? Number 2 or 3 things we found wrong with this? Okay, you can see they have a nice swedge. Prevents you from putting your cam pin in backwards. Let's just double check. Yeah, there's no way that's going in. So we'll go to the other side here. It's nice and snug. Very little movement. Like I said, they swedged this side pretty good, so can't get your cam pin in backwards. You know what? I happen to have a drawing for this cam pin, so we'll do a quick measurement on that and see where we're at. So before we measure it, something else I noticed, this appears to be nitrided. This does not appear to be manganese phosphate or parkerized. So that's probably not quite correct. I'm not complaining about it. It'll work fine. Let's measure it. Okay, here's our dimension on a cam pin. 0.3015 minus 5/10,000ths. You can see you can be a little bit under, but you cannot be over. So that's our number for the cam pin diameter. Okay, so the cam pin's right on the money. See, we're sitting at 310. And for those of you guys that may not know, calipers are plus or minus 1/1000th on the accuracy. So we are very, very close to the spec, if not right on the money. Okay, so right now I'm checking the overall length dimension, and that's going to be good enough. Like I said, I'm not going to blueprint this BCG. So we're supposed to be around 0.802. And we're coming in at 5.805. Okay, so we already checked firing pin protrusion, but I thought, why not? Seeing how we got the pin out. So here's our overall length, 3.277 from end to end on the firing pin. And we can see that we ended up like right there. All right, moving on. Okay, so they make a tool to check your extractor, but I don't know. I'm not sure you really need the tool. I guess it's nice to have. I just use an actual piece of brass and just slide it in here, and if it grabs a hold of the brass, I got a lot of tension on that, and you know it doesn't slip out. You're probably good. So we'll call that part of the extractor good. Now, something I've noticed is there does not appear to be an insert in this spring. Let me get that O-ring off and a flashlight, and we'll see if that insert's missing. It doesn't look like it's in there. I'll get some better lighting here in just a second. Okay, I think I have enough lighting now where you can see there's no insert on the center of that spring. For those of you that are new to the AR platform, I'll show you in just a second what that insert looks like and what should be in there. Every BCG that I've ever had, it's always had the center insert. Now, whether you want to run the O-ring or not, depending on what's going on with your rifle. Some of mine I run the O-ring, some of them I don't. Just depends on what's going on with the brass when we get out there and we function test the rifle. Ejection pattern, whether the brass is chewed up or not. So let me get an insert and I'll show you what those look like. Okay, so Springco sells two versions of their extractor springs. You have a 5-coil or a 4-coil. On their 5-coil, they kind of suggest that you just run without the internal dampener or the O-ring. But they suggest that if you're going to run the 5-coil with one of these dampeners, either just run an O-ring or just run the internal dampener, but not both. This happens to be my 5-coil kit. And that little thing there, that little cylindrical looking rubber piece is what should be inside the spring on this one here. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep this spring for now and put that insert in it. Okay, so one end of the spring will have a larger diameter than the other. The larger diameter is what goes into your extractor and snaps into place. And you can see I got my little dampener in there now. So we'll get that spring in there and then we got that issue resolved, or what I believe to be an issue. Okay, we got our extractor straightened out. Let's check out the ejector. You can see it's got a little bit of a radius, which is what you want on the top. Some of these are square cut. And if they mushroom or they get damaged, they can hang up in the bore on the edge. So the first thing I'm going to do is check to make sure that that ejector goes flush with the bolt face. And I'm probably just going to use a screwdriver and push it down. And if that ejector does go flush with the bolt space, then I know that it at least has the appearance of working correctly. And then we'll headspace this to the barrel. Okay, so I took the screwdriver and we pushed that ejector all the way in, and it did go flush with the bolt face. So that means that it's working right, and I can headspace with that ejector installed. Now here's where I get some pushback. Oh, Pete, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You got to completely strip that bolt down, and that's the only way you're going to headspace it correctly. And it's like, no. So long as that ejector plunger goes flush with the bolt face, it will not affect your headspace reading. Now, the extractor is a different story. Depending on how the extractor gets a hold of your headspacing gauge, it can affect and give you a false reading. Okay, so you definitely got to remove the extractor, but you do not have to remove the ejector, so long as it's working fine. All right, so I'm getting ready to headspace this on the barrel. Let's see what happens. All right, go gauge. Ejector's installed. Oh no. Passed. Let's get the no-go gauge in there and see what happens. Okay, no-go. Will not go into battery. We have passed headspacing with the ejector installed. Oh no! Okay, so on my headspace gauges, they have a full rim. You can buy these where there's a notch cut out of the edge that will fit around your ejector. So if you just absolutely 100% believe that you cannot headspace unless you have a completely stripped bolt, then you can buy the type of headspace gauge that has the notch. And then they also have reduced rim diameter headspace gauges, to where if you wanted to, you could headspace with the extractor installed also. So there's ways around this. So the last thing I'm going to worry about on this BCG is whether it slides in and out of this receiver. And it does. Very nice fit. Very little slop. Doesn't get hung up. It's working great. Okay, so in today's video, I had planned on putting the upper receiver together also, but this video has already gone into overtime. I expected to find some things wrong, as I predicted with the BCG, or some things that weren't quite right, needed to be cleaned up and taken care of. And, you know, like Nostradamus, yeah, I was right. Okay, so how would I rate this this BCG? I'm going to give it a B. And I've talked about this before in other videos, especially if you're building your own and you have the opportunity to check some of this stuff. Check it out. These firearm manufacturers are just pumping all kinds of stuff out the door, and more often than not, there's going to be something. There's going to be something that's just not quite right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back and what we were talking about earlier in the video is tap that ejector pin in and get it more centered so it's not sticking out on one side. And then I'm going to come back in here with some cold blue and touch up the bare metal where I knocked the burr down. Okay, so we'll get on this upper receiver in another video. This is Pete, North Las Vegas. Over and out.